All this late night talking.
Yes. Be better. Can you do that?
Turn down for what?
In the realm of visual storytelling, where imagination takes center stage and creativity knows no bounds, there exists a production company that stands as a true trailblazer, Prettybird. Since opening their doors in 2007, Prettybird has dedicated itself to working on projects that have not only won countless awards, Grammys, Emmys, Clios, MTV Music Awards, you name it, but also projects that have been shared among coworkers, friends, classmates, parents, maybe even you watching this video right now. They're responsible for moments that have become part of our culture. With that said, the quality of the art that they've made or the household names they've worked with are not what solely define them. It's the people that work there and the environment they've created. Not just the directors and cinematographers that work behind the scenes, but also those that work beyond the film set. There are many different dimensions that make up the entertainment industry, and in this video we want to take a moment to highlight the people doing the important work that you don't see. Let's get to know some of the deep cuts of Prettybird.
My name is Sergio Cabrera. I'm the assistant to the head of IT here.
My name is Nayeli. Quiroz. I'm the operations coordinator here at Prettybird Venturelands.
I'm Divit, Jozef, and I'm the lead PA here, Prettybird Ventureland.
I am Alysia Anderson, and I am the in-house counsel, which means that I'm the in-house lawyer.
And yes, you heard that right. There are in fact in-house lawyers specifically for production companies. We'll get to that in a bit.
My job is basically to filter any minor tech issues before they need to get elevated, and that means setting you up with printers, networks, minor adjustments to your keyboard, laptop, whatever have you. 90%, did you turn it off and on? Is the best accurate description I can give you.
So basically we're here to assist all those in the office, mostly like the executives and our boss, which is Thomas. He is the head of operations, whether that's director birthday gifts, staff birthdays, meetings, coverage.
So operations refers to stuff we do within the office, which can range anywhere from, look, coffee machine's not working, we need it fixed, all the way up to we need you to drive to Mount Washington to hand off a gift because one of our directors just had a son. Anything that falls between those two, we handle it. We've at least been lucky enough to also help in the creative side of things. So we do script coverages, script breakdowns. There's a lot of times where we have to call like the head of
Some studios.
Yeah, there's like a few things that that are routine that you're gonna do every day. But it changes from week to week.
The day is different each day. I will say that my overall job here is to make sure that every project that we produce can come out and it can be exploited to the extent that it needs to actually be. It's not just making sure that we have a commercial or an IP that can be exploited on TV. It's like we want to make sure it can go onto Snapchat, onto Instagram, onto Twitter, in France, or anywhere. You kind of approach it like taking care of the project, or at least that's how I say it. For example, a commercial about like a skateboard. I want to make sure that like it is not so local that this commercial can't travel abroad, because what if a person in France doesn't really like understand what we mean here if we were saying like hang 10 or like skateboard stuff.
So I kind of stumbled into the world of film. I went to college for communication studies. I needed a work study job, like desperately to pay for my dorm. I had a friend who really looked out for me, and she was like, hey, my job is hiring and they need work study. And it was at the Film and Electronic Arts department. So I stayed there all 4 years and I kind of fell in love with the world of it. I got to meet Aura, which is the operations coordinator of Pipelines, and I produced her film. So then I fell in love with producing, and so having her as my backbone also got me this job at Prettybird. So I took it, and now I'm here to like hopefully go into the like executive assistant route to become some sort of production coordinator or something in the producing realm.
I lucked out, honestly. So my mom is the custodial worker here. She's the maintenance, and she needed help. Brought me on day one. A producer was like, you look like my brother. Would you like to go on set? I had no idea what set was. Went on set. It was overwhelming. Came back here and then made my way up to the ranks. It was maintenance worker, PA, and then I've just held like almost every position here. So I've been in accounting, IT. I've done managing for a bit.
Yeah. So I've always liked law, which I think is probably like the first like gateway into it all. You kind of have to like justice, as in like, that's not fair. So I was like that kid in 3rd grade who was arguing. I like going to the movies. I like Spider-Man, but I definitely had a moment in high school where I was like, oh, actually, how was this made? How'd they get the music? How'd they get the color? How'd they get the costume? How'd they like get the actors? Like it became very, very interesting. So once I kind of fell in love with the art form in high school, I thought, wow, it'd be so cool to be a lawyer who can protect it, because even though it is an industry that has lots of unions and guilds and protection, you still need someone to be like the advocate for it. Hence why I was like, I like justice. So I studied TV and film in college. I went to NYU, and that was lovely because Tisch is a wonderful art school, but it is very artistic. I had a class on color theory. I had papers about like, what does the movement of the camera really do, which is incredible to experience. I feel quite blessed, but I definitely was like, where's the law part? So after that, I started being in law school, and then after I graduated, I started to get work at a studio. When you work at a big studio, every department is very like small. It's not TV for kids, it's not TV for adults, it's TV for this one small thing. And so I love that. I learned a lot about like unions and how to like really like cut contracts. But you want something more collaborative when you're younger, I think. And because I was fresh out of being in law school, I was like, I want to get more into like production. Because it's one thing to work in TV where you're making sure that the project can come out, because that is still kind of the same thing. But in production here, we really do make the project. We take it from idea to pitch to actual IP. While at a studio, the IP's already made. Like I'm being handed the baby, I'm not like making the baby, you know? What makes it a fun journey, because being in law school is very different from being in film school, is that I really do love it. So if you have passion for the type of industry you want to work in, being in law school isn't so bad.
After 12th grade, I just wanted to start a food truck because I didn't think I was going to graduate 12th grade.
That's cool.
It was like my dad technically applied for me, but he didn't tell me that's what he was doing. So he randomly asked me to write essays. I was like, okay, sure. And then eventually one day I got an acceptance from Cal State Northridge for acting. The way it works in Cal State Northridge is if you're in film, for the first 2 years, you do everything. So you're doing a little bit of editing, writing, acting. But it was during my first screenwriting course, that I was like, okay, this is really what I want to be doing. Stuck with it, graduated, and then came here. This was the first place that hired me. I was like, oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm. So you're interested in kitchen?
100, easily. Prepping of food, flavor profiles. I got you covered. Don't worry about it.
I want to take this time to discuss something that might ring a bell to people currently working in showbiz. Some may even call it a rite of passage. Let's talk about production assistants, or PAs for short.
I think so.
100%.
Yeah, there's been some moments where I'm like, oh, this is such, like, in the movies in the LA, like, the PA starting at the bottom, and it's kind of funny to, like, see it, and, like, we're kind of doing it.
And I think it is necessary, because you do end up learning a lot more which you otherwise wouldn't have. And it's also different because there's office PAs and set PAs. We have a lot of set PAs that come in here when we're doing jobs. Their role is very different from ours. In terms of the rite of passage, 100%. Because even like being a PA or an EA, executive assistant, everyone has to do it regardless of if you want to be creative or go directly into production. Like one of our heads of production used to be executive assistant for our CEO and president, and we just found that out. We were like, cool. So even you've been through the whole cycle. You know. So yeah.
Now, as I alluded to before, there is a very interesting relationship between law and entertainment. And no, I'm not talking about Law and Order. Think of all the contracts that have to be written up, all the negotiations that take place to decide where an actor's name is placed on the poster, terms and agreements that you've clicked through that just might contain some vital information. We've all done it, so no shame. Enter Alysia Anderson.
Having a lawyer is huge. I'm going to say things in two ways. If you are a creative, and I'm sure that a lot of people have that as the overall dream, you hear get an agent, get like a manager, like a publicist, you need a licensed lawyer. That person is going to tell you your rights, which is key, and they're going to know what you should be getting out of the agent. Because some people come in not knowing anything, and they really do get screwed over, unfortunately, because they are putting their trust in people who aren't giving them the full information. As a licensed lawyer, I have sworn an oath to give someone all of the information. I'm never trying to tell anyone what to do. That's not the purpose. If I have a client, I don't tell them what to do. I give them every option. The other part of it is that it's very important because content is just so different. It's a very, very broad thing right now. Like there's TV, there's film, there's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's podcasts, there's songs, and they can turn into anything. Like your TV show could be a podcast, that could be a TikTok, you know? So because anything you create can really turn into anything once it's out, you want to make sure that you have the protection in place and that you're always the owner of what you've made, or if you're not the owner, you're paid well. And also, it's good to have one early on because it makes it not seem so scary. Like a really fun part of my job is that I get to talk directly with artists and tell them, hey, this 12-page contract is not that big of a deal. It's important to sign it because we need to get this done. But paragraph 1, it's gonna look really strange and have lots of terminology and gobbledygook. I can paraphrase that and tell you exactly what this is saying. And again, I have to. I'm not trying to ever trick you.
As I said before, Prettybird believes in cultivating talent from all walks of life, which is why one of their most important endeavors has been developing Pipelines, a company that focuses on diversity, equity, inclusion, and as the name suggests, aims to provide a pipeline or a bridge for students to be able to work in the industry. If you'd like to hear more about DEI and how Pipelines is helping people get into the entertainment industry, I definitely recommend you check out our podcast with some very important people over at Pipelines, Shari Hawley and Aura Rico. For some reason, companies like to shy away from the diversity talk, but not Pipelines. So we asked the question.
A lot of people do not know this industry is accessible the way it is. So having Pipelines going out to schools and doing panels and reaching out is so helpful. The ones who don't know, it's more helpful when people come to you. Because if you don't know it exists, you don't know to search for it, you know what to do.
I think all of the companies here are ran by women. A lot of people are very young and there's a lot of people of color here. So I think that's such an important aspect and it's upheld.
And even if you were to look at our roster of directors, they're from all over the place.
I do have to step away.
Okay. Yeah, we have people from everywhere. And when you keep looking at their profiles and the jobs they've worked with, you realize they themselves have also worked with hundreds of different people from different backgrounds. We also do a lot of projects in different countries, very inclusive. And also, when we set up our meetings for our CEO and whatnot, I love seeing the professionalism with which she treats any guest. When we make our setups for a meeting, you can guess how important the meeting is. And then you see the person show up in a broken down Subaru and you're like, oh, so this is for you? But it doesn't matter to her because this could be someone who down the line is going to be super important to the company, right? Or someone who already has been. And so that was a pretty eye-opening moment for me, at least, for sure.
Overall, I will say in the field of law, it's not great. Of attorneys, only 2% are Black lawyers, and of that 2%, I'm gonna say under half are women. So it's very, very small, which is a shame because again, of justice, and the people who in this world who I think suffer the most as far as justice are people of color. I will say in my scope of work, I have very rarely worked with peers of color, and at Prettybird I have that constantly. It's really been great for me to come to an office place where yes, I'm confident to do the job I was hired to do, but I get to do it with people who I know based off of our not just racial background, but we're women or we're of a certain age that we can bond over something so specific that you really don't get from an environment that's dominant with white females or males. But it's not just about the people around me, it's also how they treat me. I was able to come into this office and have immediate respect. And just because I have a moment where I'm uncertain doesn't mean that I lose the respect of my peers. And at other companies, you really do feel a little scared to even be wavering on anything because you don't want to make that one small, slip up and then they're like, oh, well, she can't do this anymore. So I do feel here I have the respect and I have a circle of people who I really do think understand not just me and respect the work I do, but they understand where I'm coming from as a person of color working in this field that I don't get at the average place.
Now, don't get me wrong. It is inspiring to hear other people's journeys and to know that there are organizations that genuinely believe in and uphold the values of creativity and diversity. But you might also be wondering, what's in it for me? What can I do to get into the entertainment industry? Well, give me about 5 seconds because the next segment might be just what you're looking for.
I'd say number one is don't be afraid to take risks. My number one fear was taking a risk and not having it work out. So I'm very thankful that I have this job. This job was like a secure blanket for me because it's routine. It's what's to be expected. Whereas when I was on set, once you were done with the job, you'd have to wait like 2 weeks for your check to come in, and that scared me to death because I had bills and everything. I was like, how am I going to pay them? Once you take that risk and you find what you want to do outside on set and whatnot, the people that you click with, they're the ones that get you your job. So you don't have to fear about not having a job because somebody's going to like you, somebody's always going to call on you.
You have to be passionate above all, I will say. Like, it is a lot of work, and the work does not become too cumbersome if you love it. Like, that's kind of that quote that if you do what you love, you don't work. Being a lawyer is lots of work. But if you really enjoy it and love it, it's not like work that weighs on you. And every new client I get, it's not like plug and play, let me just kind of go through this. I have to really know who they are, what they want, and what's important to them. That's also a big part of it. You have to really find a lot of worth in what people want, because even if I think this artist needs to ask to have this, maybe that's not important to them, and it's not like my job to push them towards it. I am there to be their advocate. Like, I help them, they don't help me, you know? I also would say you have to have a lot of attention to detail and have the ability to look at both the forest and the trees. That's like very hard to do whenever you do have a very big job, but it's not just about the overall project, like the overall TV show. It's about, do I have a right to feature this painting in this one scene behind this one character? You know, like that's just like how you handle those issues, and you want to do it because you want the project to be great, and also to trust the artist whenever he says he needs this painting. But that's not the commercial. That's like the tree within like the forest. So it's also kind of that aspect as well.
I mean, the biggest thing is networking, like really putting yourself out there and being confident in what you're doing. Like there's a lot of times even here, they're like, oh, I need you to do script coverage for a big thing we're having. And I'm like, oh, for sure, dude. Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, DJ, let's talk it out. What do we need to do? Let's like go head first and like have a plan to like attack, and then just figure it out as you go.
Building off of that, one is being confident, not just your abilities, because that's one thing where you know what you can handle. So now you need to be confident in who you are, so that when things you've never dealt with before start coming towards you, you at least have the confidence to face them. The second thing is not being afraid to ask for help. I go to her for help all the time. And there's a lot of times where tasks come in, I've never done it before. We never spoke about it in university. I'll still do it, but it's gonna take me like a little bit of time to know what exactly it is I'm doing. Like the first time I was asked to do stage holds, I really thought it meant I have to go somewhere and hold something while they're shooting on stage. I didn't know it meant calling like the folks at Disney and saying, look, I need a 40,000 square foot soundstage for a week. Didn't know that. And also knowing that you're not gonna be punished for asking for help is something I think everyone needs to get used to. And as she said, networking as well, because when I first applied here, there was no openings. So I just sort of struck a rapport with our hiring manager. 3 months down the line, he hit me back up and was like, okay, position's open, would you like to interview for it? And that's where also being an impressionable person is super important. Because even if you help someone in like the smallest way possible, people remember that. And on the other hand, if you slight someone, they'll remember that. Yeah. You essentially want to be as helpful as you possibly can. Once people know that they can depend on you, you start moving up.
Yeah.
Now look, I know the idea of working in entertainment can seem so weird and different, maybe even intimidating and unattainable. But if there's one thing to take away from this video, it's that many of the people that play such vital roles for prominent companies like Prettybird started exactly where you might be right now, from the outside looking in. If you're an aspiring artist, producer, animator, writer, actor, technician, lawyer, anything, hopefully this video humanizes the industry just a bit for you, because it is not perfect. It is not unattainable. It is begging, thirsting for more voices, more perspective, more thought, more feeling, more change, more of you.